Hi, this is Tamara coming to you from the Makerspace at the Arlington Public Library. Today we're going to cross-stitch using a pattern. You can get cross-stitch kits that have all the supplies that you need. Today I will be showing you the Flower Owl kit by Busilla, which includes the canvas, the embroidery floss, the needle, the frame, and of course it includes the pattern. So come on, let's take a look inside. All right, here's the pattern that came in the kit. And yeah, it can look a little bit scary and a little bit overwhelming, but we're going to talk through some of those things today to take a little bit of that away. So let's look at what all you're going to see when you are looking at this pattern. First of all, we're going to have our picture here. This is a picture that we're going to be putting together. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different symbols on it, and that is going to tell you what colors that you're going to be using. And to do that, you want to look over here. This is our color symbol guide. So remember, we were looking at this, and you see this plus. If you come over here, you're going to see the plus showing right there, and it's telling us what color it is. It's our yellow-green color, and how many strands to use of the two. I'll go into that a little bit more in just a few minutes. Remember when we were talking the other day about how to do a basic cross stitch and how to do different, we're going to talk about different stitches today. If you had any questions about how to do any of them, they do like to include this grid of instructions here that will talk you through some of the steps that you may not be as familiar with. When we get to this section, it kind of goes into the different types of washing techniques that you can use. You want to hand wash it, not bleach it. You want to dry it flat. You can iron it. We encourage mild dishwashing liquid, but not a detergent, so just don't toss it in the washing machine. And it says definitely do not tumble dry, do not wring, do not steam, and it gives you an idea of how to care for your project before you finalize all the steps. When you come on over here, we were showing over on the other side all the different techniques for the actual stitches. This shows you how to prepare your fabric, how to prepare your thread, your needle, etc. We're going to go into that a lot more detail in this video. So how in the world do we put this picture onto this canvas? Let's take a look. Let's go back to our pattern here really quick before we touch the canvas. We're going to look at our pattern here, and you can see that there's an arrow here, and there's an arrow here, there's an arrow here, and there's an arrow there. Those are your guidelines. Those are going to indicate where you're going to meet. In the middle of all that is going to be the middle of your pattern. So let's see if we can figure out how where the middle of our pattern is. All right, so we have and I want the middle of my pattern to be this equal right there. All right, so you can see I went from here and just kind of pulled my fingers into the middle, and there it is. All right, now we figured out the middle of the pattern. Let's figure out where the middle of our canvas is. So I'm going to take this canvas and I'm going to fold it in half. It's okay if you fold it. Remember we were talking a minute ago about some of the care instructions about how to wash it and not dry it, and to want to press it, but you don't want to steam it. So you can press out all of these folds that we're putting in here. So you fold it in half, and then you take it again and you fold it in half one more time. And so kind of like when we were talking about those arrows, we're going to do the same thing with this canvas. The arrows are going to take us to the center of our fabric here. Once you get going, you may or may not know exactly where that is. So we want to, and this is okay again, because you can see right here that we are, the center of the fabric actually has a stitch on it. So we're going to do the same thing with our fabric that we did with the pattern. And we're going to go ahead and put a little marker there. And that can be the back of your fabric as well. So you know where it's going to be, but you can put it towards the back so it won't be seen when you're actually have a finished product. All right, so we figured out where the center of our pattern is, and it is this equal sign right here. And we want to know what color it is that we want to use. So let's go ahead and go to our color symbol guide. And let's find that symbol again. There it is. There's the equal. And we're going to move it over a little bit here, and that is telling us the color that we're going to use. It's that pretty blue color in the package of thread that we received in the kit, and I am really looking forward to working with that. I just love the colors of this kit. One of the things that you're going to find in this in the design in a pattern is that it will tell you how many strands that it wants to use. I will tell you that when I started doing this, I actually didn't look at that number, and I found myself doing things that I'm going, why is this not working? Why is this not making any sense? It's because I didn't pay attention to this number. And there's a way that we're going to get those strands, the number of strands for that, and I'll go through that in just a minute. But as you can see, when you go through some of the other techniques that we'll do in this video, the number of strands are actually different. It's actually just asking for one, and I'll show you exactly how we're going to do that in a little bit. Okay, here's that pretty turquoise. Let's go ahead and pull out our strand, and I'm going to separate the middle here, and you can see how one rope of floss for embroidery, cross stitch, and different types of hand stitching that you're going to see is going to use this kind of floss. But you can see that one rope of it actually has 6 strands. We're going to pull one of those strands out. And if you remember in my other video, we talked a little bit about how to put this together. Oh, this is really light. I hope that we can see this. If you need more help with the technique where you can see it, I have it in my other video with a darker color. Okay, so remember when we were talking a few minutes ago about the 2 strands that are required for the color that we're going to be using? When I actually threaded the needle, you're going to see that when I put these 2 together, it actually created 2 strands. So this is the 2 strands that is required in the pattern. So the technique that I'm using is a single loop. That is this right here. Okay, and we're going to take 1 strand out of the 6 in the rope and put it together. And when you put it onto your needle like this, it creates 2 strands. All right. You ready to get started? Okay. So this is the canvas we were working with a second ago. You remember how we started made sure we got the center. There's that mark that we made earlier. And we're going to take our pattern here. And once again, there's that mark we made earlier on the pattern, and it is showing me what color we're going to be using. We've gone through all of that already. We figured out, here it is. Now, let's get started. So we have here our center point. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal way of doing things. When I am seeing that that is the center and I see that it's kind of in the middle of a whole bunch of stitches of the same color, I don't always start at the center. I will actually take the center and count up. So I have this one right here. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 from the center, and that would be my starting. Or I could go 1, 2, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would be my starting point. So I would always have this as my reference guide, but then I would also count up and out, or up and up, or up and down, or up and down, down or to the side, and that's part of the counting cross stitch. But for the sake of today, I'm going to actually just start with the row that we're on. You can see that the center is actually the second stitch of the row that I want to do. So I want to start here and I work my way this way. So in our previous video, we talked about how to do a line of cross stitch. And I started, let me show you here. I started in the starting point and I worked my way in this direction and then I worked back. I like that because of the way the thread lies in the back. It's a little less messy. My recommendation, if you decide to go, because I've done this in my cross stitch career, I have actually done a couple of different types of ways of doing a row. So I actually have done in the past where I started here and I went in this direction. Or sometimes I have gone all the way down and then all the way back up. The one that I have landed on is this technique because I like the way it conserves my thread in the back. It's not quite as bulky, not quite as hard to stitch through anything that is in the back when you're working with multiple color combinations in a pattern, when you're doing some more advanced type patterns. We aren't not working on that today, but we can always go ahead and get started in different types of practices. All right, so as we talked about a minute ago, this is our center, and we're actually going to start in the hole right next to it. So, you know, I like to stitch by feel a lot more than actually turning things over, but you can see right there, you can always, once you kind of get an idea, you can turn it over just to make sure you're putting it in the right spot. But we are going to go ahead and put that into corner 1. Remember the video that we did the last time? We did corner 1, we went into corner 2, and then we turned it over, and we're going to pull your needle through that loop that we created. And this is anchoring our thread to the fabric so that we have control over how the stitching is going, and we don't have to hold it too much while we're moving around. So we have our first stitch here, which is right next to the center stitch that we put together earlier. All right, so let's look at our pattern. This is the stitch I just started, so we're going to go ahead and just do 2 stitches in our row. So let's do that. And we're going to go up to corner 2 here, pull that through. And now that we've done our first 2 stitches of the row, we're going to complete our row by going back. So we'll go pull your needle through corner 3. There it is. And we're going to pull that through and pull up to corner 4. And there's your first cross. We do the exact same thing with the next one. Corner 3 up to corner 4. And now you can see our first row is complete. Let's go ahead and go to the next row. Let's take a look at our pattern. So the next row is going to be right underneath that center square. Here's where the counting comes in. That is the second square there. You can see we have 2 squares here. We're going to go to right below the second one. So there is corner 1 and corner 2, corner 3, maybe, there we go, and all the way up to corner 4. So now we have 3 stitches that were represented here that are on this pattern here. All right, now for the fun part. We're going to actually learn a new stitch that I haven't taught before. This is what is called a half stitch. So as you can see, when you're looking at the pattern, these boxes are looking like a box, like what you see here on your canvas. It's the 4 squares. Each corner represents, the 4 holes. Each corner is a hole that is in your canvas. And so when you look at this stitch that's right next to that, let me get my pencil here, right next to this right here, you can see that that doesn't look like the square. It looked like a half square. We are actually going to do this as a half stitch. Now let me show you how that's going to work. The direction of this half stitch is from the bottom right of the box all the way up to the top left of the box. That is going to be the direction we go. So in other words, you pull it up through corner 3 and go all the way to corner 4. And let me do that real quick and show you. So there I am pulling through corner 3, just like we're completing a cross stitch, but there's actually nothing in there. Go all the way up to corner 4. And so I'm going to tell you right now that this is actually another stitch called a quarter stitch. So you have your quarter stitch, you have a half stitch, and you have a whole stitch. What we've been doing is a whole stitch. What we have here is a corner stitch because you have from one corner 3 to corner 4, and you're completing one leg of it. To do a half stitch, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to pull our needle through corner 2 because we want to complete the look that's in that pattern, and that is this kind of angled, I lost my needle there, this angled design here. So now we've pulled through your thread through corner 2. To complete this stitch, we're going to put it through the center of your square. There's not a hole there. You're going to actually have to put your needle through that through the canvas itself. And you want to make sure that you're not splitting the strands that we have here, the 2 strands that are on your needle that is making the 2 strands for the cross stitch. You don't want to split it. You want it to hook on the other side of it. We're going to put it through that center, pull it all the way through, and now you can see that you've got that angled look like you have in the pattern. So we have a couple of those that are showing. We're going to do a few of them. So we have 1, 2, 3 rows of 2 each. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so come up through corner 3, maybe. There we go. Now, be very careful when you're using canvas. It's very easy to put your needle through the fabric itself. You want to find the hole. Sometimes it's a little bit easier than other times. Okay, so you pull it up through corner 3. You put your needle through corner 4. Come up to corner 2. And we're going to pull this through. And now we're going to put your needle in the center of your square and creating that half stitch. Now the next one that we're going to do is in a different direction. We're going to still do the corner 3, all the way up to corner 4. But in this time, instead of going up corner 2, we're going to pull your needle through corner 1. There we go. To complete that half stitch by putting your needle in that middle square. So you can see that you have your 2 full squares, the one underneath it, and then you have that angled square there, and then you have another angled one, and this is an angle that's in a different direction. Let's look at that pattern one more time. And you can see that we are following exactly how that looks on the picture to how it looks here on the fabric. All right. Let's go ahead and do that a few more times and we'll come back again. All right, so I have completed the next few rows. I think earlier I said there were 4 of these lines here, but actually there were just 3. But as you can see, we're looking at our pattern again. We have one row that has the 2 squares and the half square. We haven't done that one yet, but we have done the half stitch on this one. So we had 1 square and a half stitch, and then we had 1, 2, 3 rows that are double half stitches. Then you come to this row here and you have a half stitch, 2 squares, and a half stitch. And let's see what it looks like on the fabric, on the canvas. And there you go. I have translated this pattern to the canvas, and I am you can just keep going until you get through this color on this pattern. So let's go ahead and finish our thread off. We're going to take your needle. You do not want to knot as much as you possibly can. Sometimes it's not possible not to knot, but we want to avoid it as much as we possibly can. We're going to pull our needle under this is back of the canvas, by the way. We're going to pull it through some of the stitches that we've made. And go through it once, go through it twice, and just kind of tighten it. We'll get our scissors and cut off. There we go. And that is how you will finish off your thread when you're done. We're going to take a break for just a minute, and we're going to bring in the pattern that I've done a little bit of, and we can see exactly how we can pick up from a different spot in the fabric. Look at this adorable little owl. I've been working on him for a while, and I wanted to show you how many colors I've had added here. So remember that blue we were doing just now. This is kind of represented right here. As you can see, I went back and did the top part as well. If you look at the pattern here, it's hard sometimes for me to just stitch without knowing what I have done. It's okay to highlight your pattern, but some people prefer to keep your pattern pristine because you might want to come back and do it again some other time. Feel free to develop your own style of how to keep track of what you're doing. But right now, if you can see all of the stuff that I've done, the next step we're going to do is this. I'm sorry, there it is. The next step we're going to do is this little tail right here, and let's go ahead and get started. Right here is this heart. We have a line of hearts here, and you can see that that's this right here. Let's see, we have 1, that's 2, and then that's 1, so that's 1, 2, 1. So this is where I am going to start. Okay, so this is the first one, and I want to count down to the second one. Okay, so we're going to pull through corner 1 here, and then corner 2, and go back to the back here, and we're going to anchor it by pulling it through the loop. Maybe let's try that again. There we go. pull, 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 tighten it up. We're good to go. So let's look at our pattern here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in our line here. So we're going to do a row of 6 full cross stitches. Okay, so that was 1. This is 2. We're going to do 3. 4. 5. And 6. Now it is time to complete this this row. So we're going to turn this around. We're going to pull your needle through corner 3 and go up to corner 4 this time. And then we're going to do that the same for the rest of the row. All right, so we have a row of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go to our pattern here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is the start of our little tail here. And I'm just going to keep going until we are done. All right, and there you have it. We have a nice little tail for our owl. When we come back, I'm going to show you some additional finishing techniques, some back stitching. You're going to be amazed at the details that we'll be adding to it, and some French knots and some other things. So we'll come back in just a moment. So we're going to go ahead and stitch the tail. And you see here, we've finished this part right here and all the way up to here. We're going to finish the rest of the tail this direction. I have changed my needle to the turquoise thread, and what we have just put one single strand on here, as you can see it is asking for in the pattern. So let's go ahead and turn this over, and instead of doing the loop like we did with the regular stitching, we're going to actually have to anchor it a different way. It's very similar to when we finish a color and we're wanting to secure it and cut it and get ready for the next color. We're going to run it underneath established stitches and do it a couple of times so that we don't actually pull it out when we're trying to stitch. Okay, it's pretty secure. Let's turn it over and let's go ahead and get started. So the basics of a backstitch is we're going to come in on one hole. Let me do it from here. And then you backtrack to the hole that is before it. So you can see here that we're doing kind of like a chain, and you can see this in typical sewing as well, to do a basting hem on a piece of cloth, and it locks it here, and it also locks it here so that you can give it a lot of security to what you're stitching. Okay, so taking that idea, we're going to bring our needle up into the top hole here, and we'll bring it down below to the bottom hole, and we do the same thing here to the next one. This is our half stitch from before, and we'll do the top of the half stitch and bring your needle down to the bottom of the half stitch and pull it through. We're securing the stitches so that they don't pull out later. It gives it a more connected look as it smooths away, or actually sharpens up the unfinished edges here, and we actually bring this into focus. So kind of like coloring in the edge, in the lines here, we have made the colors without the lines, and now we're adding the lines in. So let's just go ahead and do this all the way around. All right, and there you go. It is now completely detailed through for around the entire tail. Let's go ahead and secure it in the back, and we're going to cut this and move to the next technique. All right, it's time to learn, I think, which is the hardest stitch that I've ever done, and that is a French knot. Okay, so let me go ahead and take a look at our pattern. We are looking at the owl's eyes, and you see this really cool dot right there in the middle of the eye. That is part of the kind of like the little accent of the eye. And French knots, don't get me wrong, French knots are really cool. They're just hard to do for me. So I'm going to try to do the best that I can to share this with you. So let's take a look at what that symbol is looking for. And if you look here, we're seeing that symbol right there, and it is 2 strands of white. Remember how I showed you how to do the loop anchor on the other technique? Well, this is a little bit different because we're not going to be pulling it through the same way. So instead of doing 1 strand and doing a loop, I actually put 2 strands onto my needle. There it is right there. Let's go ahead and anchor it on the back, just like we did with the back stitching and like we did with the running stitch. We're going to do the same with the French knot and secure it in the back before we actually pull it through the front. So on our pattern here, it is in the middle of those top 2 full stitches of the black eye. What we want to do is we want to pull our needle through the top part of that square, We're going to take our thread and hold it with our other hand and wrap the needle 2 times. Okay. And then, let's do that one more time. And wrap it twice. And then you put it back in right below where you pulled your needle through with the thread earlier. And just put that in there. And this is a very, very, very important step. Instead of just letting it go at this point, you're actually going to continue to hold the thread tight here with your left hand as you're pulling the needle through. The reason why we're going to do that, and I'll go ahead and just let that go, so we're going to keep it as tight as we possibly can on your design. And there you go. There's a French knot. All right, so I am going to finish everything and we'll be right back. Oh my gosh, look at him. He is the cutest thing ever. Okay, I love this guy and I can't wait to frame him. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of a peek at the back really quick. Ta-da! So as you can see, it's really got neat lines here and here on all the major stitches that we did, and the back stitching is kind of a little haphazard just because that's where the thread took me. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't worry about what the back of your fabric looks like. What you're going to see and what everyone else is going to see is the cuteness that is this owl. All right. Thank you for taking this cross-stitch journey with me. I'd love to talk to you about all things cross-stitch, so please send us an email at makerspace@arlingtontx.gov. I'll see you guys really soon.